So today's video is going to be a little bit controversial to some, but I'm not someone who shies away from controversy. I don't mind talking about things that other people won't talk about or are afraid to talk about or feel like, you know, they'll anger their fan base or something at the end of the day, because I am just one person. I'm a person with a microphone and a camera and an opinion on things and a decent knowledge of the video game industry, and I like to share my thoughts with you guys. I don't have any sort of notes. I don't really have any sort of format for this video. It's probably going to go like all over the place, but I feel like people like those types of videos from me. Hopefully, if not, then I guess this video isn't for you. But I feel like this is a controversial topic just because of everything surrounding the Nintendo Switch 2 and all of the things that have sort of happened with it thus far before the system is even released. Like, we're still roughly 6 days away from the launch of the system. But I honestly feel like some of the negativity surrounding the system is actually a good thing. And it's not being done in malicious terms. It's not being done just to do it, just to be a negative Nancy or to drum up controversy. I feel like these are genuine questions and genuine concerns that people are bringing up that, unfortunately, on places like social media, get drowned out by overly positive people. And the thing about overly positive people, especially when it comes to certain pop culture related things and things of that nature, is once you start going overly positive about something, you love something so much that you're unable to turn a critical eye to it, you're unable to sort of realize flaws within it, it almost becomes like a cult-like thing. And now you are a cult leader, essentially, to these people. They follow your every word. And if you veer off the path a little bit, now you have betrayed the flock. I feel like when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, there are three distinct camps of people. And unfortunately, two of these camps are way more vocal and way more publicized than the third camp, which is the camp that most people actually fall into, the vocal minority, if you will. So you have these two camps, the overly positive, I love everything about the Nintendo Switch 2, and then you have the overly negative, the people that have no intention on buying the system, that have no desire to buy the system. They're well within the console fanboy wars. They're waging in the trenches for their PlayStation or their Xbox or their PC master race, and they just hate everything Nintendo does. And that's always kind of been the way. You know, it's always kind of been like that when it comes especially to things like video games, things like movies, things like pro wrestling. You know, there are fandoms that tie into these things. But unfortunately, these two groups of people are the ones that seem to have the most voice. And the people that are just looking at the situation, looking at the system from a consumer perspective, looking at it from, does this product meet my needs or my desires for the next Nintendo platform? The vast majority of people, that is, these are the people that end up getting drowned out. These are the people that get accused of flip-flopping or fence riding or something like that because they're not taking a definitive stance on this. And I find that so peculiar because if you actually think about it from a perspective of either the overly positive or the overly negative person, both of them have to coexist with each other in order for them to function. You can't have one without the other. Because the overly negative person who's always complaining about something like the Switch 2 game price for Mario Kart World being $80, which is a valid concern to a lot of people. But the people who kind of drive that point home, the people who kind of, you know, say, oh, well, the Switch 2 is just too weak. It looks like crap. My PC runs games better than that. That costs, you know, probably 3 times the amount of money. Those people then have the defense force for Nintendo that come along, and then those people now have content to make. They can get their tweets out, you know, trying to stop their mission, stop their message. They can make their videos justifying why things are good and things are bad. And it's a yin and yang situation. One cannot coexist without the other, but I almost feel like some of the negative talking points have actually kept things fresh for the Nintendo Switch 2, because something like an $80 price point has been a conversation ever since Mario Kart World was announced. And let's be realistic with this. Yes, Nintendo has been doing little nuggets of information with Mario Kart World, as far as like the missions that you do in the overworld and stuff like that. But the debate over the price point of the game, the overly negative and overly positive people, that has kept the conversation going on online well beyond what I feel like the game itself would have done until it releases. Would people really still be talking about the $80 situation if this game was $70? No, it would just be status quo. And then the conversation would kind of die down a bit until the game released. And once people got the game in their hands, they could sit there and sort of figure out, you know, is this game worth $80 to me? And that's one of the biggest points here, is that this is all based on personal preferences. And a lot of these people, these very positive people, they want everyone to be happy. They want everyone to love everything, as long as it falls in line with what they believe. And if you know, these are the people, and this is kind of the off-topic part, but we're going to bring it all back because I have another thing I want to talk about here. These are the people that want, like, world peace to be enacted tomorrow, and they don't understand why people don't get along. Yet these are the people that hate their neighbor because of the type of car they drive, or, you know, they hate their neighborhood because of a certain person that lives in there that did something. And you expect people online in a mostly anonymous field to completely agree with everything that you have to say. And that extends to, you know, people of other cultures, people of other creeds, people of other, you know, living in different conditions than you are. You expect them to think exactly like you do. And when you don't, when somebody veers off the path or somebody doesn't think the same way that you do, that person is an enemy. That person is a bad person. And it's like, no, that person is a different person. There's never been a time in human history where everyone got along. And this is especially within video games. Were you not there for the console wars back in the day of the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo? Like, those console wars were because you had a choice. You could pick a system. You more than likely weren't getting both. And then that was like your gang sign. That was like what you had because you had no money. Now you're an adult, but you're still doing the same sort of principles that you did as a child. And it's bewildering to me. I don't understand why any sort of questioning of the Nintendo Switch 2, of the cartridges, of, you know, only having a 64 gigabyte cartridge, which is going to severely limit the amount of physical games that come to the system, why this is now an acceptable practice when on the Switch 1, it was shunned all the time. Oh, the game's not all on the cartridge? Well, I'm not going to buy that game then. I'm not going to support that game. I'm going to buy the game that's on the cartridge. Well, it's going to get a lot worse this generation, but now we can shift our morals. Now we can shift our moral compass because Nintendo themselves is the one creating the situation around it. I think back to something that happened recently on Twitter, though, or X, whatever you want to call it, where beat-em-ups, good old Wood Wooderson, made a post, a simple post, that was a screenshot of somebody comparing the Nintendo Switch 2 box to the Nintendo Switch OLED box, and basically said something along the lines of, you know, these two things look very similar. Like, I think there could be some market confusion with this with the average person. And you might as well, like, have kicked these people's grandma, like, right in front of their face because the Defense Force was out, calling him a grifter. He's grifting off of a screenshot on X. Wood is one of the more positive people that I know. And a lot of people think that, you know, maybe there's a sense of false positivity because he always hasn't been like that. But I've known this man for 10 plus years now, at least 10 plus years. And he's grown a lot as a person. He's changed a lot as a person. His mentality, his outlook on life. He's found love. He's a homeowner. He has a kid now. He's grown up, whereas, you know, I really haven't. I'm still the same idiot that I pretty much was 10 years ago. But Wood is a generally positive person, and a lot of people see that persona, which is pretty much who he is. But within his videos, he's upbeat, he's cheerful, he's usually not too negative about something. But he dared to question something involving the Nintendo Switch 2. And it was like, this man is a pariah. This man is an evil person now. And I think that just goes to show you that there has to be, in order for there to be good, there has to be evil. In order for there to be positivity, there has to be some negativity. Now, is some negativity over the top with the Switch 2? 100%. Comparing it to a max setting, you know, PC that costs $3,000 to make is silly. Comparing it directly to a PlayStation 5 Pro, a dedicated home console with no hybrid ability, I think is silly. It's fine to do it from the perspective of, hey, this is the same game running on two different systems. One system allows you to take it on the go. You can bring it with you. You can bring it to your grandma's house. You can bring it to church and play in the back of church if you want to. You know, it has its benefits. And then one system you have to be at home, or I guess you could bring your PlayStation Portal with you, pending that there's a good Wi-Fi connection wherever you are. So I think there are people that are always going to hate what other people love. There's always people that are going to be contrarian. But to lump everyone in a contrarian sort of mindset, just because they don't like a certain aspect about the Switch 2, doesn't make them a grifter. It doesn't make them any, you know, a bad person or something like that. It makes them human. And humans are always going to disagree on things. If I give you a top 10 list of, you know, various things, my favorite games, my favorite foods, my favorite activities, my favorite, you know, movies or something like that, you're going to disagree with me on some of those lists. But I'm not going to think that you're a bad person because you're a different person. People have different upbringings and stuff. So I say all this to say, I think some of this negativity is good. You know, it's kept the conversation going up until the launch of the system. And once the system comes out, I mean, there's going to be a massive influx of positivity. There's going to be some questions about it as well. There's going to be positives. There's going to be negatives. There's going to be drawbacks. But when has the conversation been this strong for a new Nintendo system online? Because I was around when the Switch 1 came out, and the Switch 1 didn't have this same sort of conversation. It didn't have so many different people talking about it. And that's the most important thing. Out of sight, out of mind. If people are talking good about you, if people are talking bad about you, as long as people are talking about you or about a product or about something that is a topic, it keeps things relevant. It keeps it in the front of your mind. It keeps things as a conversation point. And if you're doing that, you're keeping it relevant. You're giving it essentially free publicity. And as long as nothing is like super egregious with the system, like, I don't know, you boot it up and there's a racial slur on it or something like that sort of publicity, not the racial slur publicity, but, you know, the other publicity, the more ticky-tack sort of things, the personal preferences when it comes to physical games versus digital games, like, those conversations are healthy. Those conversations are good because it keeps everything relevant. I close with this question. What do you think Nintendo would prefer? Would they prefer just a few positive people talking about the console and that's it? Or would they rather have both sides of the spectrum talking about it? Would they rather have people questioning things, thus to create a conversation, thus to create a debate, thus to create content by content creators? Like, this is a 4D chess thing here. You know, these companies know when they're going to do something to upset people. They know when they're going to do something that kind of bucks the trends a little bit. And they gauge that reaction. They gauge the conversation. They gauge the discourse. They gauge the positivity peddlers. And it's all encompassing into decision making. And I think you're seeing that with this system. So that's my hot take, you know? And like I said, I went all over the damn place with this, but that's kind of how this video was supposed to be. It was supposed to be just my thoughts on this in general. And if, you know what? Unlike those positivity peddlers, unlike those negativity peddlers, I am of the subsect of the normal individuals who understand that not everyone is going to agree with me. If you disagree with this entire video, you think Wood is a smelly grifter, you think the negativity people are evil individuals. You think the positivity people are evil individuals. That's cool, man. That's cool. At the end of the day, I am just one person with an opinion. Give me your thoughts in the comments section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Thank you to making it towards the end of this video. I actually don't know how long I've been talking. About 15 minutes. That's about what I expected it to be. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.